Good afternoon and welcome to another Kerfuffle showcase. I am delighted, honoured to have Mr. Jez from Agent OS, formerly Let MC, on the show again. How are you, my friends?
All good, thanks. Nice to be here again. Twice in the space of a week.
You downplayed that a little bit, if you don't mind me saying so. You normally
don't get ahead of yourself.
You're just building up into getting the momentum going and going from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, good. Luckily, you've got last time you had a strangely orange Donald Trump tone, so you've sorted out your lighting today, have you?
Yeah, without too much of a shiny forehead, although, yeah.
Good stuff, mate. Well, look, today was really, we wanted to have a catch up with you and look at where you are in terms of the year. Obviously, what you've been as we wind up and move towards December. It's always quite a healthy thing, I think, to look back and see how much we've achieved. In your mind, what are these things you've brought to the table? Because clearly you've been extremely busy bees.
Yeah, it's been well, it's been the same for everyone, hasn't it? It's been a crazy year, and I suppose we at the end of last year we'd had some grand plans about the things we were going to do. We'd had a consultant in. Do you remember Glenn Daly? Who did a lot of stuff with Peter, and I think he was involved at EA Masters again this year. And Glenn came into the business to have a chat with us about how we were going to move it forward. And to give us these sort of basic scorecard measures for if you remember that much about the
scorecards in terms of
so business scorecards and the best, looking at the best ways of driving the business forward in the way that you want to. And it was a really, really brilliant exercise, and gave us lots of ideas about all the things we were going to do this year. And then of course COVID happened, and it kind of changed our plans. But what it did do is give us a foundation to everything that we wanted to achieve.
You didn't have a pandemic factored into your what ifs and maybes.
No. Strangely enough, we didn't. Although the pandemic plan suddenly happened very, very quickly. But the nice thing is, in a weird way, it sort of meant that we had the time and capacity to focus on the parts of the development we wanted to make that perhaps we had decided to put further back in the year. So one big part of that was a pretty significant culture change, and we implemented a piece of software called Client Success Box, which isn't necessarily a widely known tool, but for software as a service businesses, the client success model of support has been around for a while, but it's not something that we'd adopted in any significant fashion before the end of last year. But we realized it was something we had to do, and the concept being that culturally moving away from a support function as a reactive part of the business and moving everything onto a proactive success model. But in order to be able to do that and do it properly, you have to have some way of knowing what your users are doing. And it's bonkers that we have all these users sitting inside the system. They have unique identifications. We know exactly who's in the system, but we couldn't tell what they were doing and how they were using the software. So putting this piece of software behind the system has just fundamentally changed how we work, and it's changing the culture of how we provide support and move things forward. So it really
just because on that point, is that then because it stops you managing by kind of gut feel? You're actually back managing them on real empirical evidence.
Yeah,
literally, we might have a perception that X, Y, Z part of the system is really, really popular, and actually your clients aren't getting to it for whatever reason and using it in earnest.
Absolutely right. So it sounds a bit stalky, but it genuinely is, and it's not a question of us wanting to know exactly what everybody's doing, but it gives us an understanding of how the system is being used, whether it's being used in the right way or as we designed it, whether it looks a bit like people are fighting against how the system's been designed, which obviously then raises questions around development and improvements. But most importantly, identify the areas of the system people just weren't using, and we wave a finger in the air. People use 50% of a software system. It's been fundamental in how we've moved things forward since really the beginning of the year. So that's been been very interesting. The net effect of that sort of to where we are now is we're seeing vast improvements in engagement from the client base in parts of the software perhaps they hadn't been traditionally using. And it wasn't they didn't want to use it; it was that they perhaps didn't know how, or they didn't understand. And this success model has just meant that we're able to focus in on the specific parts of the system that they needed help with. The best example of that is we introduced our open banking connections at the beginning of the year, which has been brilliant. And we've got 70 new clients using the open banking connections.
So just so I understand, this is a kind of like a bit of software, a bit like PayPop or Let's Pay or something like that. But
no. So obviously we have Agent Pay, which is the app, similar to those guys in terms of outsourced accounting services. But open banking fundamentally underpins it and makes it different from our perspective. So the original purpose for building the open banking connections was to get away from, or to allow our clients to get away from having to manually enter client accounting transactions into a system, or as most of us were doing, downloading a bank statement and uploading a bank statement into the software and then reconciling it. What the open banking connection does is allows you to plug the account directly into the software. So you don't have to go logging into your
no reading of information.
Yeah, you don't have to download anything. It's just there. Right. So you log in, and that then is extending into some of the work that we're doing. Well, we've started doing, but it'll be appearing next year. But what that did then was give us the ability to plug that same functionality into the Agent Pay service. So of the big things we've achieved this year, obviously Agent Pay is one of those. That being the new service, doing that full accounts reconciliation, payment services, and the crucial part of that is you don't have to be an Agent OS customer in order to use the Agent Pay service. And the point of difference initially was really about the fact that through open banking you were able to plug your own bank account directly into the app and start using it to automate your reconciliation and payment processes. So that was something that really got accelerated as a result of lockdown coming about. We had to focus on something. We had to really look at what things can we do to try and help, firstly and honestly, our client base, but then secondly, looking wider and saying, right, what opportunities are there out there? And that seemed like an obvious one.
So, I mean, it seems to me you've made a bit of a sort of shift. I don't know whether it was a deliberate mindset as well. We were talking on another show actually about how the days of any of these systems, ERP systems, CRM, what you want to call them, there really was a drive going back only 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that, there was going to be one kind of system to rule them all. Everyone was going to absorb the functionality in one master package, and actually, you were one of the first to look at integration with third-party systems, but it seems like that's now a fundamental part. Actually, you're launching different almost product lines that don't, that are available for other clients. Is that deliberate, just to open yourselves up to a wider audience?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd be lying if I said it was the plan originally. It wasn't. So much had made us refocus our attentions on what we were doing as a result of lockdown. And had we wanted to build everything into the CRM and have one package that does everything, the holy grail of software, sure. That I think a lot of us talked about for a long time, but we'd already started on a journey of being very open with data, with connectivity. But it suddenly dawned on us that actually building these role-specific apps is an opportunity, yes, but also it's a benefit. Again, coming back to this idea of our success model of providing support services now, what's in the best interest of supporting not just our clients and therefore the owners of those businesses and what they deem to be success, but what helps the individual user be successful in their role. And that being, if we go back to everything we do in terms of new development and whether that be in the app environment or whether that's in the core system, it's about asking that question first. How is this helpful? What does this do? What does it achieve if we do this thing? And whilst at the same time looking at what exists and asking the same question: is what was there still relevant? Is it still useful? And it just completely changed our outlook on what we do. And yeah, had we intended on going out and having 4 or 5 more product lines that can go to the open market? No, we hadn't intended on that. But looking forward into next year, we will have at least 2 on top of the CRM, which is it a burden? Do we want to go and hit the market with other products as well? I don't know. It's probably going to be my job to deal with that. But it's exciting it's almost been a byproduct of the work that we've done, and a change in culture and approach to how we develop the software. So it's been really interesting. Really interesting.
I'll play you a recording back of this time next year, just to remind you if it's all gone to plan.
Mate, if we're able to do that sitting around a table at a bar, I'll be happier. But a recording will do.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter how successful it is then, does it? And anyway, I'm a bit disappointed with you there, saying it wasn't part of the master plan. I thought my Yoda teachings had taught you better. Claim everything. It was all part of the vision from day one. I've got to say, Jay,
expenses aren't a thing at the moment, so.
Well, you say that. Then if I could show you the amount of Apple merchandise sat next to me, you'd disagree. I've got to just say, talking about, and I think just going back to your previous original point as well about that customer success box, which allows you to, plot obviously what your users are actually doing. This is nothing other than just a brief aside. I wanted to, I obviously have to have a bluffer's guide for everything. So I was having a look at their website. This was their slogan to kick it off, which I thought was fantastic. Get to 130% plus MRR retention. This is the killer line. Customer Success Boss is an AI-powered customer success software to onboard, retain, upsell, and drive MRR growth for B2B SaaS.
Yeah.
Like, wow.
Snappy. Written by developers, that one.
I think it was. I've seen a few press releases for new starters in this industry come up with stuff like that recently. I think it's really interesting. I think that's fascinating, though. And of course, I mentioned the Apple Gear. The first thing you do when you sign on to that is give anonymized data back to enable, the biggest company in the world, understand how their apps and things are being used, aren't they?
Yeah, and it's weird because it's not been something that we've not been doing anyway. We've been mildly aware of the fact that we've got a ton of people using the system, and we had but this is the point, we had a rough idea of what they were doing, and we had to make a very time-consuming effort to find out what could be done and what could be changed. And now what we've got is a system that delivers that information to us. Every day we're seeing what's going on with the client base, with gradings of those clients, so we know exactly what we've got to do in order to improve the service to the client base, and most importantly, start delivering new products into the client base that service the needs that they've got that perhaps we don't currently provide. And it goes hand in hand with something else we implemented actually more middle of last year, but it's really been pushing on this year is Canny, which you may or may not have come across. But Canny is a reporting tool. It allows our clients to make software requests, development ideas. But the point is with that is that's an open platform, so everybody is using the same thing. Nothing is deleted, so it means the client base as a whole are able to get in and make suggestions and then start voting for what they want to have done. So it becomes a voting platform. And so doing that alongside the client success box is really giving us data that tells us what we need to do, rather than us guessing or commercially making decisions that perhaps don't have the best interests at heart of the client base.
So if I'm to understand that element there, is that a bit like, I know there's a few websites that do it, and most of them seem to be powered by things like Salesforce, where, different kind of development ideas. I mean, it can be anything, can't it? And then you can upvote as a user based on the selection there.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's fantastic.
So, I mean, it's gamified. Go on.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, it's that horrible, wanky phrase. It democratizes your client base's ability, though, doesn't it? Really does. You can still, if you like, shortlist those enhancements to make sure you're going forwards on the right plan. But ultimately, then giving that control back, nobody's got unlimited resource or anything like that. So you have to take some decisions, and it makes perfect sense to listen to your audience in terms of which ones are priorities, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it I suppose it demonstrates the interaction that we're prepared to have with the client base over those things, because there are plenty of debates that go on there. There are plenty of people who are disappointed that their incredible idea is something that we just can't or won't implement. But where things are voted up in a big way, and the first thing that went in there was actually open banking connections. That was the first thing that got masses and masses of votes. We commit to doing that work.
Are you telling me you boycotted, downvoted David Mintz's RedTube integration then?
Yeah, apparently we didn't have enough bandwidth for it.
Yeah, so that's a classic one. This is a moment, Jez, just for you to sit back, have a cup of have a sip of your tea. This is the point, obviously, on a pink show like ours, where we throw digital rose petals at you, taken from the reviews off your very own landing page on there. This is James Christopher from Shorelets Limited. Brilliant support staff, always helpful, on hand, and knowledgeable. And then, the fantastic team, so helpful and supportive, Mr. Wolfenden from Leaderbox. So you can't get in and tell me what his browsing history is, though. No, that's not.
I probably could, but there's some dark arts to everything. Isn't it?
Okay, cool. Keep hitting me. Obviously, this is great. I mean, this is what everyone wants, isn't it? At a time when a lot of the CRM companies and indeed a lot of prop tech companies are being accused of a lack of innovation and everything else, you've got a very aggressive development roadmap. But actually, there's some consistency and strategy to it. It's not like you kind of said, we're going to do open banking or we're going to do this MI tool. There, it's all leading towards a common goal, isn't it?
Yeah, and what's isn't, we have to make commercial decisions on what we do. It's about working out what our clients need most. We in the past we've had to make best guesses. Now at least we're armed with a lot of data around that as well. So that's why we're seeing the changes that we've made over the last year. The negotiator app. So talking about apps again. Yeah. That's in the client base now. It's very much in beta, but we've got it to that minimal viable product stage, and then we release. And we allow people to play. There's no cost associated with it. We want people to use it, feedback exactly what their experience is, and then we'll start tinkering with those suggestions and make improvements. I think you had Christian on last week and talking about a very similar approach: is get something out there that is relevant, that is useful, but then start listening to the feedback that comes back about that and start making changes. So we've got tons of things scheduled for that. But the purpose of that negotiator app is to have everything a negotiator needs in the palm of their hand. Connected to the CRM, obviously, but trying to bring the CRM onto a phone-sized device just isn't feasible. It's there's just too much information to display. So we've had to build it specifically for the role. But that's out there at the moment for messaging, for diary purposes, for existing listings. But it's going to be, in fact, you can actually do a tenancy application on it now, I'm pretty sure. But then beyond that, we can take that further. So we've got planned there to start bringing all your live leads directly into that system. So if you're, let's say you're using Rightmove and a lead gets delivered to you via Rightmove, that's going to ping on your phone. It's going to be in your app. So you could deal with it there and then. You're going to get a notification to let you know one's existed. It's happened in the CRM as well. If it doesn't suit your business model, that's fine. You just keep dealing with it centrally. But if you're out and about all the time, then you've got that in your hand. And then prospecting is the big one that it's going to see a lot of work done to it over the coming year, but the idea of having an app in your pocket that's got local mapping, that's got opportunities in and around you from competitor data, that's not data taken from our system. That's looking at portal land data, and delivering that into the same app means that you've got everything from a negs point of view in the palm of your hand, and that's out there. That's, as I say, that's being used, but we've got to still do more work to it. And then that moves into other things that we've been doing right now, which is we've got wireframed and owners app. So same concept. Yeah. What does the owner need in the palm of their hand, and having a look at that. And so that's going to be not just. So we talked about leads and bring leads into the negs app, but if you were able to start seeing funnels, likely conversion rates, based on the lead information that's coming in at the top of the funnel, and then looking at conversion rates and starting to be able to forecast inside an app just get an idea of exactly what it is that's going on inside your business, what's going to go on inside your business in the future. Obviously, KPI management within that as well as part of that app, and financial performance. So
I
it starts
love
to put
that.
it all in one place.
I think it's fantastic to, one of the frustrations, you were the first, or either the first, or one of the early adopters of true cloud software. But one of the lazy elements that happened with all providers that started to go down that route was when they did talk about it being mobile, but what it really meant was you were just shrinking the screen down, weren't you, like that? And actually, that point about needing to display a lot of information, or indeed input a lot of information, simply didn't work or wasn't optimized in the right way on your iPad or on your phone. What's brilliant about that Neg app is you've thought about it, thought what they actually need to do, thought about the form factor, the size, and everything else, and literally built a product to work on that basis. And I think that's a really interesting and just totally logical way of doing things these days.
Yeah, I've mentioned this before speaking to you, but we use an Amazon Web Services environment for everything. So everything lives and breathes in Amazon. And they have a platform called Amplify, which we use for this development. And we're proving concept at the moment, really, by building these apps for ourselves. We have a full-time app developer who's doing this work for us. And it's been really interesting because the speed at which we can turn around apps that are usable, so connected to the core data and actually have something meaningful behind them, is a matter of weeks. I mean, it's quite incredible, the stuff that the guys have been doing, and it throws up that possibility of what if a third party wanted to build something?
Yeah.
What if somebody else wanted to build something? The Amplify platform is essentially free to use until you want to start storing data. So it opens up the possibility. It's very much concept at the moment, but the possibility that people could be building their own things that's directly connected to the software, delivered as apps. I don't know. We've got, I think, 4 apps now built into the CRM. So we've got this brand new user interface and UX work that's been going on, which is I'm reliably informed it's going to be the 30th of November now. So that will be you heard it here first, until it gets put back by a week again. It's going to be really interesting because it's a complete overhaul. So the whole UI changes, definitely for the better. Very much more focused on reducing clicks, dashboard led for everything. But a big part of that is that there is an apps dashboard now that sits inside the new UI. And whilst the only apps that sit there currently will be the 4 apps that we're providing, it becomes the environment that we'll start pushing third-party development towards, so that you're able to actually build things into the system. So currently it sits as QR codes. So you sit in front of your desktop screen, scan the phone, and there you go. There you are. There's your app. Log in and you're away. And undoubtedly we'll do a lot more development on that as time goes. But that currently is the Neg app, owner's app wireframe, which isn't live now, but will be made live as soon as there's something worth seeing there. The accounts app, which is a very basic version of Agent Pay, and Agent Pay itself sits there. Then going beyond that, we're looking at Agent Watch, which is more of a big data prospecting piece. So there's a lot of work going on that at the moment as well. So that's quite exciting too. But everything, again, it's all connected to the system. It's all connected to the core CRM. But it becomes an environment for our clients to use it from the CRM. And then, of course, we'll have something separate for those people who aren't core software clients but want to use the apps that we're producing.
I think it's fantastic to have that. For some time now, I've been thinking that those CRM companies that literally integrate closely the prospecting, style data that are going to be leaps and bounds ahead of the competition. Really, anything that provides a bit of a delay, an extra login or something like that, means that it doesn't happen as much. So to have that prospecting data layered into your own CRM system is really good. And the way you've shown me that in the past, in terms of how that does blend together, is really, really impressive on that.
We're only scratching the surface of that as well at the moment. So the Agent Watch data that we pull in just means when you add a property record, it immediately brings in, past sales history, land registry data, prospect data. Have you had it on the market before? If you did, it takes you to everything is put in one place, and that's just automatically put in there the moment you add the property record, whether that's a property for sale. And that is, like I say, scratching the surface of what's possible with that information. But what it means is that you've got a lot more information without having to dive out of the system, go hunting around for comparable information, for example. A lot of it sits inside the software, but it is early days, and there are so many more data sources out there now. I haven't even started to explore working with some of those other guys who are out there, and certainly that's part of my plans for next year is talking to everybody and going, right, what can we actually do with all this data that's out there? How can we work together to get something really interesting for our client base? So yeah, it's an exciting time.
And to facilitate that, you've obviously got the option of going just direct in terms of integration, but we all know how painful that continual work is, given the increasing number of companies wanting to integrate. So you've had quite a big to alleviate that. You've been doing a lot of work with Zapier, haven't you? The middleware program that helps integration and indeed works with a number of the genuinely the largest CRMs in the world. Can you just talk to us about that? What benefits that gives you?
Yeah, it was really interesting watching Richard at Desiree talking about Zapier, as he was intent on calling it, which I believe is correct, but I refuse until they put an extra P in it. It's Zapier.
I kept cringing because I realised I'd got it wrong all my life, basically.
Yeah, I know. I just refuse. So it was really interesting. They're a bit further down the line in terms of how they're using it. They've done some incredible work there. It looks fantastic in what they've done. But we're thinking exactly the same things. We built triggers for some specific applications. So Facebook, Gmail. What else? With MailChimp, Drip is on its way. But the point is that you build triggers for certain events. So that trigger, let's for the sake of MailChimp, say whenever you add a new landlord, automatically assign it to a campaign in MailChimp. The point is that the trigger there is adding a new landlord, that something can happen. And actually, it's just then a question of pointing it into the piece of software you want to using Zapier. What we have to do then is make sure we build the triggers and keep pushing those out. And making sure that we're connected to those main apps. But it's become a really important part of what we're going to be doing moving forward, because conceptually, everybody in this industry could build connections to Zapier.
Yeah.
There's no reason why that can't happen. And that then starts to become really interesting for movement of data, for agents themselves to be able to create their own custom workflows without any request made to any of the software providers or prop tech providers out there. It becomes unnecessary by doing it that way, which is why it's so compelling to start doing work, very early, to get as many triggers built as possible. Yeah. It's a bit of a faff to get the publishing rights on Zapier, so you've got to get various connections done first. But once you've done that, then you can start really sort of getting creative with how you can use the Zapier interface. It's there are easy interfaces to use out there, so it's not rocket science by any stretch of the imagination. But you need a slightly technical mind just to understand the flows. But once you've done one or two of them, it's pretty straightforward to create the workflows that you want. And as I say, that becomes really interesting.
It should stop, though, that drive that a lot of people, no matter what the size of agency, where they think, well, there's nothing that quite meets my requirements at the moment in the CRM space, so I'm going to write my own. And, then they've basically taken the choice that they're not going to be an agent anymore. They're going to be a software house. Yeah. And actually, what you're giving here is a perfect halfway house for that, isn't it? Is look, don't reinvent the wheel for everything. That these systems like yours and all the other ones out there, they have to do so much just to get to the entry level. Just concentrate on the stuff that you want to make you different. That's where the main benefit's got to come from all of this, hasn't it? And
absolutely.
And I was thinking about it when you were talking about before with that kind of that app approach there. You're doing it, as you mentioned, with a negotiator app. But actually, if I'm right in thinking what you're saying there, a real world example there might be somebody who has a client services department might want to have their own kind of, client services person app as well that looks at the specific nature of that job in a very, very different way. So it really allows you to match the technology, the right tool with the right job, isn't it?
Yeah, and the key point with that is that depending on, if you're a company that's got a client services division, you're probably a decent sized business with decent resources, and maybe even an IT team. I mean, if you want to build it yourself, that then becomes possible. And that's the great thing with that app environment, is that we're just building things to prove the concept, things that are useful. But if you've got an idea, having a conversation with a big data company at the moment who we don't know what we can do with it. We really don't. They're going to be looking at the API layer, looking at the data that's in there, and then making suggestions. Here's some ideas of what could be done with that type of data set. And it may be nothing, but it may be something. And I think that's crucial. Some of the we work with some of the a corporate with a number of subdivisions. And it's very much specialist departments within that corporate business. But their reason for using us has been all about API connections. Core functionality is there, but having that ability to connect to the data, get out what they need instantly in real time is absolutely crucial. So it's really underpinning what we're about. Certainly for the future. There's it's all about the data now, undoubtedly.
Perfect. And so talk us through. What else have you got in your kit bag helping people out?
I suppose the only other, or so the only other, that sounds bad. The one interesting thing that's coming out with this next UI release is WhatsApp connectivity. So that's going to be interesting. So when you're in a,
we all know WhatsApp. Specifically, how's that going to help your clients? What are they going to be able to do on any?
Initially, it's about communication. It's about we're very much focused now on the communication side of the system, and what can we do to enable as much flexibility about communication as is possible. And it's absolutely crystal clear that WhatsApp is a tool for the future. Quite a lot of landlords who communicate almost exclusively with their tenants via WhatsApp. So the initial work that we've done there is just the connection to the WhatsApp API, so that you can open up WhatsApp web portal on your desktop directly from the software. So you can start a website, a chat there if you wish. It's only that right now, but what we've done by connecting to the API has opened up the opportunity to work with people like Paul at Stitch, for example, in the future, and look at how you expand on that. Because obviously there's a lot more involved if you're going to have a business account. There's a lot more around permissions. There's a lot more around bringing conversations back into CRM to update notes rather than it sitting outside of it. So it's not just as simple as connecting to the chat function and allowing it to happen. But it's a starting point, and we see that as definitely a future of communication.
It's a vital one, isn't it? Because anything that guarantees over 90% open rate just simply can't be ignored in the second.
Yeah, so it's less about I know Paul's very big on the prospecting side and the lead management via WhatsApp. It's nothing to do with that at the moment. That's not what we built it for. We built it for interaction with your existing clients if they want to talk to you with WhatsApp. Excuse me. But yeah, so that's going to be really interesting. And then moving forward into next year, we have the next app coming along, which is Agent Sign. So Agent Sign is pre-tenancy. It's a signing journey, but it's not just for lettings. We're looking down the sales route as well. So this is about providing white labeled opportunity for the pre-tenancy booking of viewings directly in diaries, paperwork, doing the entire journey through to production of the tenancy, and then obviously through to commencing the tenancy journey, and then wrapping that around. That's going to be in app format. We've already got the wireframes for those, so that's quite exciting as well. There's a lot going on there, but there'll be a big focus on that for next year too.
Great. I mean, just looking at what you were talking before, I just wanted to ask your opinion. Though. Do you think that we're going to? Do you think we're going to see a trend, an increasing trend of what I've now christened PropTech 3, essentially? More, you mentioned Christian from the depository. Clearly, there's Kai and area Beatons as well. Do you think the approach now that you and some of the other CRMs are taking is going to encourage and liberate those agents to do more like that?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean,
It would seem
if I go back to when we started out, we started off with our own lettings business, a letting agent that built software for ourselves. So with that classic company that did that, but that was way back 2002, something like that. And Let MC as was born in 2004. But that was a hard slog back then, and the reason that it worked out the way it did was very much that there was a very successful lettings business, essentially funding the startup costs of a software company.
Yeah.
Up until a few years ago, the concept of sitting down and starting up your own technology business with your own money, that's a lot of money to do that, and to do it and get it out to market and have something useful. But it is actually a lot easier these days to get to market with a product. It's not as expensive as it once was. So I think the idea that people who have worked in the business, worked in the industry, have the capacity now to go out and get people to do work like Christian did, for example, get a good development team on board, bring something to market. It's so much easier than it was. I fully expect to see more of it. Loads of people over the years have sat me down in various demos and told me that what I've got is, well, it's okay, but I've got this great idea. It should do it like this. I mean, you must have had that as well. It's a very big difference between saying this is a great thing and then looking at the cost of doing it and then going, yeah, it's not that great, is it? And actually following through and building something like Christian and Kai have done. You've got to have fairly large balls to do that as well, I might add. But it's a lot easier now to do it than previously. And I think also we're starting to move, particularly on the letting side, starting to move lettings out of this cottage industry it once was. I think the adoption of technology, the appreciation of automation, particularly around lettings, is something that we're starting to see a lot more of, and therefore there's more opportunity to start building products to solve problems that agents have.
I definitely think, I mean, it feels to me that the stars are just aligned to enable this to happen. First of all, that ability to specialize in certain areas, looking at really niche issues, as Christian always talks about. It was born out of literally one of the most frustrating parts of their job in his successful lettings agency down at base. And now that you can go and obviously look at sort of resources like Upwork, where you can literally put in your remit for a project and grade. Obviously, you can see the graded reviews for the developers that are out there. It is de-risking a large. I mean, there's always risk, as you quite rightly highlighted there, but to a large degree, it is de-risking the process, isn't it?
It is, yeah, absolutely. And the amount of stuff that we've written down over the years that we still haven't done is ludicrous. It's madness.
1,026 notes I've got here, all absolute game-changing Dragon's Den style ideas.
1,025 of those are questions you wrote down the other evening, I think.
Yes, that was, yeah. I'm going to a special zone there. I look forward to that on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think that there's just trying to find the one thing that's going to improve your life or life of your clients is the key. Can you find something that is demonstrably going to improve a part of the business? And undoubtedly, now that we're seeing, we saw a lot of prop tech appear trying to solve problems that didn't exist.
Yeah,
we saw a lot less prop tech coming to market solving genuine problems that did exist, but not maybe having the budget, the talent, possibly even to get it out there in a big way. And then we've got this handful of prop tech suppliers who've done brilliant things and really delivering powerful solutions. And we're starting to see more players appear in each of those spaces. So we look at things like inventory apps. You go back, I don't know, 3 or 4 years, and there were a handful. Now there are loads, and they're all doing similar things, and they've got their own bells and whistles and their own integrations. And so there's a load of choice, and that's great for the industry. It's the ability for people to go out there and build things now is better than it's ever been. So I don't think we're going to see less of them coming to market. It's just a question of whether they do anything more interesting. Speaking of which, you mentioned tech and you mentioned CRM, and like a property candy man, Mr. Robert May has just. Hello, Robert. You said candy man. I thought Rain Man personally.
Well, there's a bit of both in there, isn't there? Admit that. If anyone sat down listening to him talking techie, that's how I feel. All I have is I have the Homer Simpson monkey doing that in my head. But I think Robert says here, late to the party. Yeah, late to the party. But you were one of the first to start the party, Robert, weren't you? Famously, and then,
give him credit for that.
Yeah. CFB, obviously the granddaddy of original letting software. RFC request for change was limited to 10,000. Now, what's he intimating there? I'm not quite getting that.
I'm presuming the amount of requests that the client base were making. I would presume.
Okay. You might want to elaborate on that again, Robert. You know what? I've told you the clue's in my name. It's simple, Simon. I need it much more. I need tips. If possible. Adulation time again. Let's just have a look. We've got Normie and Co. Support's great and works seamlessly from anywhere as cloud-based. My staff tell me good things about it. I love the idea there that David's just admitting he never uses it himself.
Yeah, absolutely.
He sat there in his ivory. How is it?
Has everybody finished their work yet? Yeah, I can see that.
And you hear that a lot, don't you, Jet? Well, I won't ask you, actually. I'll tell you. The one thing we always hear back, a bit like the money penny, I don't know what it is. It's just Wales, isn't it? It's just the niceness of Wales. Your team and you in particular, and Amy and Glenn, you're so approachable. That's always been one of the main caveats. I've never, even when we were competitors, we would have conversations, on those rare times when people move between our packages, we could ring up each other and have a sensible conversation rather than the kind of, the mudslinging that you might see happen elsewhere. I think that's a lovely, because, you don't have to like every business, do you, that you do business with, but it sure as hell helps, doesn't it, when you're paying your hard-earned cash across?
It's nice to be able to. Well, I like to think that the biggest feedback we get about the positive feedback that we get about what we do is almost always focused on service and the team who provide that, and that's not me and Glyn and Amy. That's the support team. They are our heroes, because it's them day to day who are getting our clients to get the best out of the system. And again, this comes back to this success model of approaching support and being proactive. It's great when people pick up the phone and have a great experience, but the fact that we're not satisfied with the idea that somebody picks up the phone because they've got a problem. We want to spot the problem before it happens and have proactively gone to them to make sure it doesn't happen. And that's, is it achievable? I don't know. But that's, if we look at it as a goal and say that's what we want to achieve, we want to spot these things before they happen and be able to get in contact with people and have that conversation and make sure they don't go down the roads of having problems. Because once you've got some sort of problem, particularly around accounting, if you've got some sort of problem, it can be an absolute nightmare to deal with from a support perspective. And you've got to face facts that resourcing support services is one of the more expensive parts of any software business.
Necessary evil, though, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. But moving to that proactive method and allowing technology to support it means that we can do better at it, and I think that's ultimately what we want to try and achieve: be better at what we do. And it doesn't come in big leaps; it's little steps all the time. But that's kind of what we're trying to do.
I'm going to tell your competitors, which you're going to be really angry about now, the secret sauce to why your customer success team is there. There's no coincidence, I believe, that the fact you have got a fantastic Jack and Vera Duckworth style bar in your offices is causing the the happiness and
Yeah.
satisfaction. I'd love to know whether your open and close rates increase or decrease over the course of the day or not.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, slow down around about 4 o'clock.
Yeah, funny enough. To give you a little aside, in our little kerfuffle world, we were, as is the vogue, isn't it? You know, you call people customer heroes and all these nonsense things. They managed to come up with supplier success team, until I pointed out that abbreviated that was going to make them the SS, which I didn't think. I know we're ready, but I don't think we're ready to pull that off yet.
Yeah, I don't know. We've got rid of Trump, haven't we? So we're probably okay.
Yeah. Everything's fine. You're quite right. There's no in the world now. Yeah, go on 2020. What do you think you've got left in it for us? That meteorite's just flying towards us for December, isn't it?
Yeah, we've surprised and blazoned on it. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay. So well, obviously you need to come back and tell us about all those exciting things you're doing next year as well.
Certainly will.
We need kerfuffle exclusives and launches everywhere. That we'd love to obviously hear about what that's going on and hear those success stories as well. I think it'd be really interesting to hear from if you can get a few of those actual negs and things who are using the actually, get practice what we preach, get them up on kerfuffle, and I think that'll be really useful for people to actually understand just the power of those particular tools.
Yeah, no problem. It would be a pleasure to do that. Bring that one on in the new year, I think.
Cool and good. I mean, any data on the site just goes a little bit further to making me a future millionaire. So this time next year, that would be.
You know how I like to help your mission.
So what else? What do you think? What are you looking at to achieve for next year at this early stage? Bearing in mind, we'll have to see how it develops.
I think it's difficult. It's such a big unknown at the moment. We can't ignore the current situation COVID wise, but we do have the plan of rolling out this new UI, new dashboard, which leads us into certainly the first quarter of next year, doing a hell of a lot of work around that, because the whole purpose of getting this new user interface out there is to change how our clients are using the software. So inevitably part of that is going to be listening to that feedback immediately and acting on it. So I suspect the first quarter, if we're unlucky, 2 quarters, will be focused very much on tinkering around the user interface and dashboard. Meanwhile, I've got 1,000,001 API conversations going on for partnerships, connectivity, integrations. So there's loads going on there. In fact, I'm very shortly going to be speaking to Raj to go through FixFlow and everything else that he's doing there to enhance that work. So that'll be fun. Zapier Connections is going to be a big thing.
My regards to my mentor.
I will. He's like your splinter, isn't he? And you're a turtle.
Just to be clear, he does threaten injunctions every time I call him my mentor because he wants to distance himself as closely as possible. I won't allow him that. So that's going to be a big thing, and then agent sign, as I mentioned earlier, is going to be a significant amount of work. There's a load of stuff going on in the background, which I'll probably tell you a little bit about offline, and that will be something that will definitely share. Never mind the NDAs.
Yeah, I know. It's inevitable, but there's some interesting things there as well. So so that's it's going to be apps. It's going to be UI, UX, and then ongoing work on the customer success side of things as well. But really exciting times, I hope.
It really is. Well, look, you're 5-star rated on the site, and I'm not at all surprised why. As we've spoken about before, the success leaves clues. What's interesting is you guys. You don't make them secrets. You've been shouting from the hilltops about what your approach is, completely open for years and years. So I think that's going to be great to see you developing this year and everything else. And of course, even better than that, you've donned your Jolly Red Giant, is it not Jolly Red Giant? Your Santa outfit anyway, and given our wonderful Kerfuffle members a lovely special offer. So. I think I'm right in saying that you've been willing to offer 2 months free to all agencies. Is this the first time you've seen this, or has Amy dumped this on us?
Yeah, no. Look at the surprise on my face. We offered this at the start of lockdown when we first spoke. We are continuing that until we come out the other side of this. So, if you want to come on board, then that offer is there for both Agent OS and Agent Pay. So it means you can get up and running. And
so if they wanted to with Agent Pay, they could come to you just for that module and have the same.
Absolutely, don't need to be an OS client. You don't need to change your core software. Agent Pay as a service. And interesting with Agent Pay, which I didn't really touch on earlier. We are just going in the final throes of being able to provide almost certainly with Barclays, but our own client account for that as well. So that brings it in line with other offerings that are out there. So you'll have the possibility of two options. If you want to give up your client account, you'll have an option. If you want to maintain your existing client account, just plug it into to an automated app, then you will also be able to do that. So those are two very, very different things. But that's going to be very interesting.
Thank you very much for that. That's absolutely. Oh, actually, Robert's just jumped in there. Data conversion. What does that onboarding process look like in terms of there? Is there a formal data conversion, or is it
over the years we've tried various methods of data conversion, and they're all non-exact. It's a real challenge. So we have an onboarding team. Their job is to look at the data sets of the of new clients as they come on board. And more often than not, it comes down to working with spreadsheets of some description. So we want to get the data out of your existing system, and then take a look at it, and we tend to build it into templates that we've created for ourselves, so that you get to control the data that gets pulled in. One of the failings we've seen over the years has been going and getting a whopping great big CSV or backup file and just importing it in. And what you do is you end up bringing in what might be crappy data.
Rubbish in,
system. Okay?
It's rubbish in, rubbish out, isn't it? That's always
it is, and my promise to people is always I guarantee that the data will be 100% correct as long as you provide it 100% correct.
Yeah.
And if you go in and just pull backup files out, invariably data conversions can be an absolute nightmare. So we have a full-time project coordinator who oversees all the projects for onboarding. Data conversion is a big part of that, and it just depends client to client who does it, what sort of project goes involved. Some people like to do it themselves. If you want to sit and enter data yourself, that's absolutely fine. We don't charge for that sort of service. And if you want to have our teams involved in linking data sets together and entering it into systems, then absolutely we can provide that service. But there's costs associated with that, which is typically a price per property to do it.
Okay, cool. Well, look, obviously I'm biased because you're part of the A team, but congrats, all the best, and it's obviously it's looking really good. Obviously, you got nominated as well for that very open approach in terms of the integration at EA Masters recently as well. I'll leave the final word with your fantastic marketing director, who says he knows nothing, and I'll leave the audience to say whether that's you or me.
Could be either of us, to be honest.
To be honest, she's probably used Zapier to just automate that for every one of my podcasts.
Yeah.
Okay, matey. Look, thank you very much. Great to hear the updates from it. Obviously, any of those product launches, come back. You know where to do it.
Absolutely.
And best of luck. Obviously, reach out to you can find them all over social media at the Agent OS webpage, or of course go to the Agent OS landing page on Kerfuffle, and there's an I'm interested, contact me button, and we will obviously forward that over to Jez once I've pillaged your data. No, that's not. That's all. Just a joke. It's said Gerald Ratner. Jez, thank you once more. Cheers.
Thanks, mate.